All right, welcome back to the channel today, ladies and gents. You know, I did have a lot, I do have absolutely tons and tons of things to discuss today and get you up to speed on. But yet again, there's just so many advancements happening at such a rapid rate. You're probably seeing this for yourself. It is so difficult to keep up. I couldn't believe today when I looked at my list of bullet points. Over 75 things have happened just in the last 3 days. 75 events. Talk about being on the hockey stick here with this acceleration of everything going on. Now, there was a few finance things I wanted to cover today, so I'll probably cover those in another video because I really need to focus on one of the main things that's going on at the moment, and that is what's the advancements with Russia, Ukraine, NATO, US, China. It is just getting absolutely insane. But before we get into that, the Fed did raise the base rate by 75 basis points, 0.75%. How was my forecast on that one? Same with the Bank of England, half a percentage point, 50 basis points. This means that interest rates have now come up a lot more, which is going to squeeze out affordability. It's going to stop a lot of credit hitting the market. And overall, if you understand my thesis, I know many of you have taken my course now, my macro stock market course. If you haven't, just real quick before we get into today's content, this is it here. I'll put the link below in the description. 119 lectures spanning over 15 and a half hours. So check this out. It's absolutely huge. I won't even show you all of this. It's absolutely enormous, this course. But I really do think that, and again, we'll come on to everything in a moment, but I really do think in terms of your finances at the moment, the question I'm getting every single day, what do I do with my money? Neil, I've got all my savings in one bank. I've bought this, I've bought that. First and foremost, get your money out of one bank. That is the most obvious thing to do. You need to have multiple bank accounts. I mean, I've said this so many times, I can't say it anymore. If your broker or your platform where you've got your money, if you've lost a lot of money this year, so you're seeing your investments going down and you're paying a brokerage fee, stop and think about this. Take my course, because it's going to teach you all of this for yourself anyway. And it just doesn't make sense if you're paying really high percentage fees, management fees, if they're not even performing for you and you're losing money. So that's the first thing that I would say. And look what happened yesterday once. It's so ironic. You would expect this news, this new mobilization news, and we'll come on to this in a moment. You would expect, with everything going on with Russia, Ukraine, and the US and NATO and everything, you would expect these markets to be plummeting. And they didn't even move. When these announcements came out, the markets didn't even move. It was only when the base rate change actually was announced that the market started to drop. And this shows you just how out of touch now a lot of analysts are. And I know there's a lot of analysts that watch the channel. I don't mean any offense to you, because you're probably quite awake and you understand what's going on. But the average analyst, and you've probably seen this for yourself, they just don't get it. You go in to speak to a financial advisor at the moment and you share some of your concerns you have with the finance markets, and they will just, I guarantee you, they'll say, oh, don't worry about any of that. That's not going to happen. Oh, bail-in. No, that's fine. That's not going to happen. They will say all these things to you because they're still operating the same way that they have been for the last 10, 20 years, a lot of them, and they just can't see it. They don't understand what is going on right now. So what happened over the last sort of 24, 48 hours, and depending on when you're watching this video? Well, Putin has now announced the mobilization of 300,000 reservists. Now, you think, and I was talking to someone about this, and they said, well, is that a lot, Neil, compared to the millions that are in Ukraine right now? And I said, sorry, what, millions? There's only 200,000 Russian troops in Ukraine at the moment. And this person was really surprised when I said that, because you think of the conflict and the damage being done right now with 200,000 troops. Imagine another 300,000 on top. And now Putin's announced more investment into weapons. And there was also a meeting, I'm not exactly sure when it was, I think it was this week, with his Security Council and his top generals, and he was just talking through and looking at the achievements, and I'm using their word, their achievements that they've made in Ukraine. And it's quite staggering, actually, that they'd only spent $6 billion, and again, the figures, varies depending on who you listen to, but about $6 billion, and they've managed to wipe out a very large amount of NATO's stockpile, weapon stockpile, especially the advanced stuff. So this is why you're seeing all these announcements at the moment with NATO and Biden and all the other countries saying that they are ramping up weapons manufacturing. And now you think about all these US politicians and in the Senate who had bought into these weapons manufacturing companies way, long time ago. And you obviously see they knew something that the rest of the people didn't. But I do find it really bizarre at the moment how we're seeing all of this news, and it's obvious we're on a war footing. We are heading towards war. It's so clear as day, but yet the average person can't see it. I don't even go on Facebook or any social media, but I flicked on today because someone said they'd sent me, a friend had sent me something. I haven't been on Facebook in months. I went on there and I just had a quick look at the feed, and it was like business as usual, not even a blip. No one was even talking about these new announcements and these new advancements, and now you've got this vote taking place in some of these regions, the contested regions, I guess we can call them. I saw someone talking about their family holiday. Oh, we're just saving up for a holiday to Florida. Oh yeah, we're going to Spain. And it's like, do people not realize the gravity of the situation we are in? I really don't think the average person does. Honestly, I genuinely think the average person is completely clueless about what's going on. Because I spoke to another person this week, and I was talking to them about, hey, what do you think about the war and what's going on there? And they said, oh, it's going to be over. And this is a friend of mine. He said, it's going to be over soon. I was just watching, he was talking about these media outlets, and they said that Russia's, almost all their soldiers have been killed. And the war's going to be over soon because, they haven't got the stomach for it, and they're all retreating. And I just thought, okay, if you honestly believe that, then I'm not surprised at the other things you've been taken in by, because that is just not the case. And actually, it's just been announced over the last couple of days that the Russian paratroopers who have been fighting in Syria since probably about 2015 region are going to be moved from Syria to Ukraine. Now, I don't think people understand the gravity of this, and I've covered this on some of my historical pieces a year and a half ago. But if you think about military, and you can look at it from modern day or way back in the day, in fact you can go back thousands of years, what would a general, so a commander on the battlefield, or a king or whoever, who would they send in first? Would it be like the general soldiers or something like that? No, it tends to be you send in like the hardcore elite, your most battle-hardened soldiers. You'll send them into the mass first. So what have you got with the German paratroopers? And by the way, these guys are huge. I saw some images today of these guys. They are enormous, and they look very fit and strong to me. And you look at that, and they've been in Syria since 2015. That's over 7 years of battle hardening and just that absolute toughness. Now you send them into a conflict, and you think about NATO and some of the other, and again, I don't take sides in such matters because it gets people really upset and they start crying about it, or, oh, I'm unsubscribing because you said one thing that I didn't like, this sort of ridiculousness. But if you think about it, and you think about NATO and some of the Western countries, they haven't really been fighting in any hardcore battles for a long time. Now, to me, this is a good thing that we're not having lots of war, because I'm not a fan of war. And I say that as an ex-soldier myself. But from the other perspective, it's not a good thing, because if you ever do need to go to war or some sort of conflict, and the soldiers haven't been battle hardened, and you have countries that is very much a woke agenda, so it's very soft, the people are getting very soft. And you heard me on my walk and talk just last week telling you how these guys look tough and they're all the talk. It started raining and they gave up, they cried off and went home. This is what I'm talking about at the moment. So I just don't know if the troops are really going to be ready for this sort of conflict that's coming. Now, actually what happened, I was following this myself because I thought, what is happening here? Putin was meant to give this big speech, and then he was, 30 minutes late, and then he was an hour late, and I thought, what on earth is going on? An hour and a half late, 2 hours late, and then I'm not sure what happened. I think they postponed it or something. I had to catch up on it this morning and just, read through and see what was being said. And it did look very serious. It really did. So he's talking about nuclear, and he's saying, if you, the West, threaten us, or you keep trying to, attack this nuclear power plant and whatever. I think he's talking about false flag, events and stuff. He's basically saying, and again, I'm just telling you what he's saying. So what's coming out here is he's saying, if you do anything nuclear-wise, we are going to do the same to you. And he wasn't bluffing here. You can tell when you watch him talk. You can tell that he's a man that doesn't mince his words. He doesn't look like the kind of guy that's bluffing to me. So it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest, and I'm not talking about a huge nuclear bomb here, but if some sort of tactical nukes were used on the battlefield, or even some more advanced kind of weaponry, especially if China gets involved. I don't know if you've seen these drone swarm weapons they've got now. These things are unbelievable. And they can even take out an aircraft carrier with this drone swarm with just one system. It is that insane. And there's been a lot of leaked information at the moment with China and Russia's discussions. So it's pretty clear to me that if there was some sort of conflict, China would get involved and they would take the side of Russia. Now, when it comes to India, it's still, to me, I don't know which way that would go. It looks like they're kind of on the fence. They're playing both sides, keeping both sides happy, which is a good thing because you don't want your country dragged into something. It's a bit like how Switzerland used to be. If you remember, the Swiss, that used to be a term. They were neutrality, but not anymore. But talking about all the war footing and everything else going on, what I find baffling is that I don't think people have realized this. And I haven't heard anyone mention this yet. But if you think about, even if the West has all these troops and all this military hardware and, there's a major scale war, where are they going to get the diesel from, or whatever other energy in the oil, to actually power all of their equipment? If a lot of energy is coming from Russia, and we've had all these ESG mandates to turn off all the new exploration and the energy, and you only have to look at the strategic oil reserve in the US, which is getting depleted, and they are not refilling it at this stage. And when they do, they're going to have to refill it at a much higher rate, and the more they buy, remember supply and demand, as the supply goes down, demand goes up. They're going to be paying more and more and more for it. So the thing to look out for next then is this referendum. So these contested regions are going to be voting on whether they join Russia. Now, I will say this, and again, you always get propaganda on both sides. It's the same in every war or conflict. You can't just think any side is 100% telling the truth. Even if it is your own country and you're very loyal to your own country, they will be putting out some misinformation. So one of those things that I've really dived in deep is these contested regions. And we're told, it's all Ukrainian, and there's no Russians in there that support this, and they don't want to do this vote and everything else. Well, if you actually look at some of these live streams, and it is worth watching on people going through these regions, you should look at the amount of Russian flags that are hanging out of apartment buildings and houses and all sorts of things like this. So it isn't exactly the way the media is portraying it. And the other thing is, if no one would ever vote for, leaving and going to Russia, why is Ukraine at the moment rushing through this new law that says anyone who's involved in this referendum and the voting, it is a 5 to 10 year prison sentence? So that says to me that they are a little bit worried that the people in these regions may vote to leave Russia. Now, even if that happened and the vote went through and these regions did say we're going to join Russia, it wouldn't make any difference because they wouldn't be recognized around the Western world. The BRICS nations, I think, would recognize it. And you only have to look at the recent conference that they held to see the unity and cohesion there. And you can see that the BRICS nations seem to be, and I use the word seem to be, thriving at the moment economically. It's not the way it's being portrayed. The Russian ruble is actually stronger than it was before the sanctions. And some of the stuff Russia's doing, like the energy, this is quite shocking actually. But they are burning off $10 million per day in natural gas. You won't see this on the media. $10 million per day because of the closed pipelines and everything else. So all of this energy, this natural gas that Europe needs, is just being burned. It's being burned off. And again, even when it comes to the pipeline, it's very, very contested, and it's hard to get to the truth of actually what is happening there. The West is saying that Russia's just turned off all the pipeline and that's that. Russia is saying that it's not through choice, that Ukraine and Poland have closed the pipeline and that they need a part, but Canada won't release the part because of a sanction. So they said they can't get the part. Anyway, it's very, very complicated and difficult to actually get to the truth of a lot of this stuff, is what I'm finding. So let's just hear what Biden said when he was asked if they would defend Taiwan. So not just Russian conflict, but China as well.
Be clear, sir. U.S. forces, U.S. men and women would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion?
Yes.
But would U.S. forces defend the island?
Yes, if in fact there was an unprecedented attack.
Okay, I don't think we need to even debate that. That is, you heard it from the horse's mouth there. And then just a reminder of this video that I did on June 29th, actually 370,000 views. I didn't even realize that. I hadn't looked at it since then. But remember what the Chief of the Defence Staff said.
How I intend to mobilise the British Army, our regulars, our reservists and our civilians to deter Russian aggression.
Now notice what he basically said there. He's going to mobilise everyone, reservists as well, and civilians, okay? He's going to mobilise the civilians. And then he then goes on to call it Operation Mobilise. So you can actually look this up, Operation Mobilise. And it's basically the UK's plan to mobilise against Russia and China. And then we have this article, Putin mobilizes 300,000 troops for war in Ukraine and warns he's not bluffing with the nuclear threat. In a rare pre-recorded televised announcement, Putin said the West wants to destroy our country and claimed the West had tried to turn Ukraine's people into cannon fodder. Putin said mobilization events would begin Wednesday, and he's also ordered an increase in funding to boost Russia's weapon production. Putin confirmed that military reservists would be called up into active service, but insisted a wider conscription of Russian men of fighting age was not taking place. So this is a key thing I wanted you to understand as well, because I'm seeing this on a lot of media outlets that he's mobilizing everyone and conscripting. That's actually not correct. It is the reservists who are being mobilized. All right, wow, that was a lot to take in, I know, but you're now updated somewhat between what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. So we will continue on. I'll embed some things into the walk and talk tomorrow, but other than that, we'll continue on next week. This is the challenge, you say. I wish I had my own researcher, an editor, and maybe a film studio manager, but because I do all of this myself, I just seem to have a massive lack of time. Feel free to send me your CV resume if you want to become my researcher or something. But yeah, I'll continue on next week. I will do my absolute best to just keep bringing you all of this content. And just a reminder, if you haven't checked out my macro and stock market course, the link will be below in a pinned comment and the description. Highly recommend that you check that out. It is heavily discounted for my YouTube subscribers, and you'll see the price that people in finance firms and organizations are paying for it compared to what you're paying for it. So thanks so much for watching today. I will see you tomorrow for hopefully a lovely walk and talk, depending on the weather. Take care. God bless.